They thought choosing both was the end. Part 2 revealed the real consequences. On the planet of Kelara, the wind whispered through the strange crystal forests that grew like towers across the landscape. Among these towering crystals walked two explorers, Mara and Jalen. Both were young but highly skilled in the ways of survival and exploration, their minds sharp, their hearts eager for discovery. They had arrived on Kelara following rumors of an ancient technology buried deep within the planet's surface. Legends spoke of a device capable of granting incredible power, but with one peculiar rule. The user must make a choice between two paths. Each path promised something precious but came with a risk. Many had tried, but none had returned to tell the tale. Mara adjusted the straps of her backpack and glanced at Jalen. "Do you think it's real? This choice, it sounds like one of those old myths," she said, trying to mask her excitement with caution. Jalen shook his head, scanning the horizon with his keen, calculating eyes. "I don't know if it's real, but something drew us here, didn't it? Something we couldn't ignore. We need to see this for ourselves." The path ahead split in two, marked by two towering crystal pillars that seemed to hum faintly, resonating with a vibration Mara felt in her chest. She remembered the warnings of the old archivists they had met before leaving their ship. Choosing one path is difficult. Choosing both, that is impossible. Mara and Jalen had laughed at the time. Impossible, they thought. Humans are clever. Humans are adaptable. They could find a way to handle both paths. What harm could come from trying? Now, standing before the crystal pillars, Mara felt a tremor of doubt. Jalen, noticing her hesitation, reached out and touched the left pillar. The crystal's surface was cool, almost alive under his fingers, pulsing faintly with light. "Here goes nothing," he murmured. Mara, emboldened by his action, placed her hand on the right pillar. The moment their fingers touched the crystals, the ground beneath them shivered. A wave of energy shot through the air, carrying with it images of possibilities, visions that were vivid, confusing, and overwhelming. They saw themselves as heroes, as rulers, as beings with powers beyond comprehension. They saw destruction too, fires consuming cities, oceans rising, skies torn apart by storms. Each vision pulled at their hearts and minds, showing what could happen if they chose one path or the other. What is happening?" Mara whispered, her voice trembling. Jalen didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the visions, and his mind raced to understand them. Then, as if sensing their resolve, the crystals began to merge their light, forming a bridge of energy connecting the two pillars. Maybe both is possible," Jalen said slowly, awe in his voice. "Maybe we can do it." Mara hesitated. The warnings, the legends, they all spoke of disaster if someone tried to claim both. And yet the bridge of light seemed to invite them, almost daring them to step forward. They stepped onto the bridge hand in hand. The moment they did, the world around them shifted. The ground disappeared, the skies darkened, and a strange quiet filled the air. It was as though they had left reality itself behind. Then the first consequence struck. A figure appeared before them, humanoid but unlike any human they had ever seen. Its skin shimmered with silver light, its eyes deep pools of shifting color. It spoke in a voice that seemed to echo both inside their heads and across the empty space around them. "Those who choose both paths must understand the cost. You have broken the rules of balance. The universe will not allow this lightly." Mara stepped back instinctively. "We didn't know. You chose," the figure interrupted. "And now you must face what you have brought upon yourselves." The bridge beneath them vibrated violently. Mara and Jalen held tight to each other as visions assaulted them again, this time darker, more personal. They saw people they loved in danger, futures where they were alone, consequences that could ripple across the stars. Jalen gritted his teeth. "We can handle this. We always handle things." But even as he spoke, Mara noticed the first change in themselves. Her sense of time became fragmented. Minutes felt like hours. She could hear Jalen's thoughts clearly, as if their minds were linked by the energy of the crystals. And Jalen could feel her emotions intensely, every doubt, every fear magnified. "This isn't just power," Mara said. "It's connection. Too much connection. I can't think straight." The silver figure nodded. "You have bound yourselves to both paths. Your strengths will double, but so will your vulnerabilities. Every choice you make will affect not only you but everything around you." Balance has been broken. Suddenly, the energy of the bridge surged, lifting them off their feet. They floated in a void filled with light and shadow, and then they were tested. A series of challenges appeared, each reflecting a path they had chosen. Mara faced one trial where her compassion and wisdom were tested against a plague threatening a colony of humans. Jalen faced another trial, where his intelligence and courage were tested against a collapsing star system. Each challenge required absolute focus, absolute dedication, and both of them realized they could not succeed alone. Together, they solved the puzzles, saved the people, and endured the dangers. But every solution seemed to demand a sacrifice. Every victory was bittersweet. And the more they succeeded, the more they realized the cost of their decision to claim both paths. Hours, or perhaps days passed. Time had no meaning here. Exhausted, they finally landed on a platform that resembled the surface of Kelara, yet it was unlike any place they had known. The crystals that surrounded them pulsed gently, almost as if they were breathing. The silver figure appeared once more. "You have endured the first trials, but this is only the beginning. The universe will test you because you have chosen to hold what should not be held. Every step forward will bring new consequences. You are no longer merely explorers. You are guardians, carriers of a duality that the cosmos itself fears." Mara looked at Jalen, fear and determination mingling in her eyes. "We can do this," she said softly. "We have to. Whatever comes next, we face it together." Jalen nodded, but he felt the weight of the words pressing on his mind. "Together, yes, but I don't think either of us truly understands what we've unleashed." The silver figure extended a hand, and a holographic map appeared before them. It showed stars, planets, and paths connecting them in ways they could not yet comprehend. "Your journey will take you across worlds, through trials that will shape civilizations. You will face choices that others cannot even imagine. And the consequences will reveal themselves in ways you cannot predict." Mara and Jalen exchanged a look. Fear, awe, and determination mingled in their expressions. The decision to choose both paths had seemed like a small rebellion, a daring act. Now they understood. It was far more than that. As they stepped forward onto the path laid out by the holographic map, the crystal bridge behind them faded into light. The energy settled into their bodies, lingering as a reminder of the choice they had made. The universe had acknowledged them, and in doing so, it had begun a process that would change everything. They were no longer the same humans who had stepped onto Kelara's surface. Their minds, their hearts, their very beings were intertwined with forces greater than themselves. Every thought, every action, every decision would ripple outward, carrying consequences beyond their comprehension. And yet, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, Mara and Jalen moved forward. Humans were resilient. Humans were brave. And if the universe had dared to challenge them, they would meet it head-on. The twin suns set on the horizon, and a new journey began. The path of duality, fraught with peril, awaited them, and neither of them could turn back now. The first steps into the new path were disorienting. Mara and Jalen felt the weight of the duality inside them, an energy that hummed in their veins, pulsing in time with the universe itself. Each heartbeat was amplified, each thought echoing in ways that neither had experienced before. They realized, almost immediately, that the choice to claim both paths was not simply about power. It was about responsibility, and the consequences were already beginning to unfold. Their first encounter came sooner than expected. As they crossed a barren plateau, the air shimmered with heat and light, and a small human colony appeared before them. It was a settlement Mara and Jalen had read about in old star maps, but the timelines did not match. This colony had not yet been built, or so they had thought. The people of the colony looked up in awe and fear. Children clung to their parents' hands. Workers paused mid-task. The elders whispered to each other, speaking a language that Mara and Jalen could understand only because of the bridge of connection the crystals had created. Who are you?" one of the elders asked, voice trembling. "How did you arrive here?" Mara stepped forward. "We are travelers," she said gently, trying to calm the tension. "We mean no harm. We are here to help." The energy in her words carried a resonance beyond simple speech. The people felt it, an unspoken promise of protection, of guidance. Yet, even as Mara spoke, she realized something unsettling. The colony was in danger, not from an outside threat, but from within. A disease was spreading, subtle yet lethal. Their presence here could change the outcome, but if they intervened too much, they might alter the course of history itself. Jalen glanced at Mara, worry etched on his face. "We need to act. We can't let them suffer." Mara nodded, though a shadow of doubt crossed her mind. "We have to be careful. Every action will have consequences." They moved among the settlers, using knowledge from their own time to create remedies, build shelters, and stabilize the colony. Their dual connection allowed them to work faster, think clearer, and anticipate problems before they arose. Within hours, they had transformed the settlement from vulnerable to secure. But the cost was immediate. The dual energy they had absorbed from the crystals began to strain their bodies. Mara felt sharp pains in her chest, and Jalen's vision flickered as though the universe itself were testing their limits. Their minds were intertwined not only with each other but with the fates of everyone they touched. Every decision caused a ripple, small at first, then growing larger. "You feel it too, don't you?" Mara asked, gripping Jalen's arm. He nodded. "It's like we're part of something bigger and it's pushing back. The universe is testing us." Their next challenge appeared without warning. A massive storm erupted on the horizon, black clouds twisting with unnatural energy. Winds ripped through the plateau, carrying with them debris and danger. But this was no ordinary storm. The energy from the crystals reacted to the storm, amplifying its intensity. Lightning danced unnaturally, striking near the colony with precision. Mara and Jalen realized the storm was testing them, not just their strength but their judgment. "We have to protect them," Mara shouted over the roar of the wind, "even if it drains us completely." Together, they summoned the dual energy of the paths, forming shields that wrapped around the colony. The storm struck with full force, but their combined power held it at bay. They could feel the strain building, muscles screaming, minds teetering on the edge of collapse, but they refused to yield. For every bolt of lightning, for every gust of wind they countered, their connection growing stronger even as their fatigue mounted. Hours passed in what felt like moments. When the storm finally subsided, Mara and Jalen collapsed to the ground, utterly spent. The colony remained safe, but both of them knew this was only the beginning. The energy of the crystals had not been used lightly, and now it demanded a price. "Look," Jalen said weakly, pointing to a distant horizon. A dark rift had formed, stretching across the sky like a scar. From within it, shapes moved, creatures that were neither fully physical nor fully energy. They were drawn to the duality that Mara and Jalen carried, sensing the balance they had disrupted. "They've come because of us," Mara said, voice tight with fear and determination. "They sensed the choice we made." The creatures advanced slowly, deliberately, their forms shifting with an eerie fluidity. Mara and Jalen realized that the universe itself had consequences in motion now. Choosing both paths had not only amplified their abilities, but had also drawn attention from forces that existed beyond human understanding. As the first creature neared, Mara extended her hands, summoning the energy of both paths. It flowed through her, bright and pure, illuminating the plateau. The creature recoiled but did not retreat. Its form solidified, revealing eyes that seemed to pierce into her very soul. Jalen joined her, adding his own energy to the mix. Together, they formed a barrier of power that pushed the creature back. Yet with each surge, their strength waned, and the feedback from the dual paths began to fracture their concentration. "We can't keep this up forever," Jalen warned. "We need another way." Mara thought quickly. "The paths, they must be guiding us to learn something. We have to understand what balance really means, or we'll never survive." The creatures circled, testing them, probing for weakness. Mara and Jalen realized that brute force alone would not suffice. They needed strategy, foresight, and the unity that their dual connection allowed. Mara reached out to the creatures mentally, sending calm, deliberate thoughts. To her astonishment, some of the beings paused, sensing the intent behind her energy. She realized that the duality could be used not only for protection but for communication. Jalen caught on quickly. "We can influence them," he said, "not fight them, guide them." Using a combination of energy and mental connection, they steered the creatures away from the colony, directing them toward the empty expanse of the plateau. It was exhausting, but the creatures eventually retreated, leaving the settlement unharmed. Breathing heavily, Mara and Jalen looked at each other. This is what it means," Mara said. "Choosing both paths doesn't just give us power, it forces us to think beyond ourselves. Every choice, every action, every connection matters." Jalen nodded, though his eyes were wary. "And the consequences, they're real, not just for us but for everyone we touch." As they prepared to leave the plateau, the silver figure from Kelara appeared once more. Its voice was calm, yet filled with weight. "You have survived the first true test, but understand this: every action will echo across time and space. What you did here saved lives, yes, but it also altered the natural order. The consequences will continue to unfold, some immediate, some far-reaching. You have chosen both, and now the universe will challenge you at every turn." Mara and Jalen absorbed the words. It was clear that their journey would not be simple. It would be filled with trials, requiring wisdom, courage, and compassion. The dual paths gave them power, yes, but also responsibility far beyond anything they had imagined. "Then we face it," Mara said firmly, gripping Jalen's hand. "We face every consequence, every challenge, together." The figure nodded, and the holographic map shimmered once more, revealing new destinations, worlds in peril, civilizations in need, and mysteries waiting to be solved. Each point on the map pulsed with energy, signaling the choices that awaited them and the consequences that would inevitably follow. As Mara and Jalen stepped forward, the twin suns rose again over the plateau, casting long shadows across the crystal-strewn landscape. The light reflected off the remnants of the storm, creating a kaleidoscope of colors that seemed to dance in celebration and warning. They understood now that the path of duality was not merely a challenge of strength or intelligence. It was a test of humanity itself, the ability to act with courage, empathy, and foresight in a universe that demanded balance. And so, with hearts united and spirits determined, Mara and Jalen continued their journey. They were no longer just explorers seeking discovery. They were guardians of consequences, bearers of duality, and humans capable of rising to meet the unimaginable challenges that lay ahead. The first consequences of their choice had revealed themselves, not just trials, but lessons. And the universe was only beginning to teach. The journey across the stars had grown more complex with each passing day. Mara and Jalen, still bound by the energy of the dual paths, felt the weight of their choice heavier than ever. Their minds were stretched in multiple directions at once, perceiving not just their own world, but glimpses of countless others, each with its own struggles and challenges. The silver figure's warning echoed in their thoughts. Every action will echo across time and space. Mara and Jalen had begun to understand its true meaning. The universe was a web of delicate balance, and even the smallest interference could create far-reaching consequences. Yet, they could not turn back. They had chosen both paths, and every step forward demanded courage, intelligence, and empathy. Their next destination was a planet named Thuris 9, a world cloaked in perpetual twilight. Satellite readings had shown signs of advanced civilization, but Mara and Jalen knew from the maps that the world was teetering on the brink of collapse. Political unrest, environmental decay, and dwindling resources combined to create a perfect storm of potential disaster. As their ship descended through the thin atmosphere, Mara observed the sprawling cities below. Towers of metal and glass reached skyward, but many were abandoned, their windows dark. Smoke rose from scattered fires, and the hum of energy grids faltered in erratic patterns. It was clear that Thuris 9 was suffering and the people were struggling to survive. "Look at this," Jalen said quietly, eyes scanning the landscape. "This is far worse than any map suggested. Something pushed them to the edge." Mara nodded. "And if we intervene carelessly, we could make things worse. We have to be careful." They landed in the central city, stepping onto streets that were eerily silent. Buildings towered above them, some crumbled from neglect, others held together with temporary repairs. Mara and Jalen felt the pulse of the world, the energy of desperation, fear, and determination intertwined in a chaotic rhythm. They were not alone. Figures emerged from the shadows, observing them cautiously. The people of Thuris 9 had heard stories of visitors with unusual abilities, but few had seen them in person. Rumors spoke of humans who could heal with a touch, influence the weather, or see into the future. Mara and Jalen were about to prove these stories true, but at a cost. A young woman approached them first, her eyes wary but filled with hope. "You are the travelers," she asked. "Can you help us? The leaders have failed and the storms, they are destroying everything." Mara reached out her hand gently. "We will do what we can. But you must trust us and you must work with us. We cannot solve everything alone." The woman nodded. "I am Lyra. I will help guide you." With Lyra as their guide, Mara and Jalen moved through the city. The problems were immediate and overwhelming. Power grids were failing, water was scarce, and conflicts between factions threatened to erupt into violence at any moment. The dual paths gave Mara and Jalen an advantage. They could anticipate needs, coordinate efforts, and solve problems faster than any ordinary human team could. Yet, the strain on their bodies and minds grew. Hours turned into days as they worked tirelessly. Mara coordinated efforts to restore the power grid, while Jalen devised systems to purify water and stabilize essential infrastructure. Their connection allowed them to work seamlessly, predicting each other's thoughts and actions with uncanny precision. Yet with every success, they felt the energy of the dual paths ripple outward, affecting the people of Thuris 9 in ways both subtle and profound. They began to notice changes in the people around them. Some were inspired, gaining courage and resolve from the presence of the travelers. Others grew anxious, overwhelmed by the sudden surge of energy and guidance. Mara realized that their interference, though well-intentioned, was altering the natural progression of events. Every life they touched was changed, not always for the better, sometimes in ways they could not yet predict. One night, Mara awoke to find Jalen staring at the horizon, his expression tense. "Something is coming," he said softly. Before Mara could respond, the sky above the city darkened unnaturally. A storm unlike any they had seen before approached, its clouds swirling in impossible patterns. Lightning struck in arcs that seemed guided by intelligence, and a deep rumble echoed through the city. The people of Thuris 9 fled in panic, seeking shelter wherever they could. "This is not natural," Mara said, feeling the dual paths stir in response. "It's drawn to us." The creatures they had encountered on the plateau had followed them through the stars, tracking the dual energy they carried. These beings were neither entirely physical nor fully energy-based. They existed in a form that was difficult for the human mind to comprehend. And now they were descending upon Thuris 9, testing the travelers and the people they sought to protect. Jalen took Mara's hand. "We can't fight them with force alone. We have to guide them like before, but on a larger scale." Using the energy of both paths, Mara and Jalen reached out mentally to the creatures. They focused not on pushing them away, but on redirecting them, steering them toward areas of the planet that were uninhabited. The effort was immense, requiring perfect synchronization and absolute focus. Each creature resisted, probing for weaknesses, but the travelers maintained control, drawing on the combined strength of their connection. Meanwhile, Lyra worked to calm the population. Mara and Jalen used their abilities to enhance her influence, helping her inspire courage and cooperation among the terrified citizens. The dual energy flowed through them, connecting all who were willing to listen, creating a network of resilience and resolve. The battle of influence continued for hours, testing every ounce of their endurance. Mara felt her vision blur, Jalen's muscles trembled, and their minds teetered on the edge of collapse. Yet they persisted, driven by the knowledge that failure would mean disaster not only for Thuris 9, but for countless worlds connected through the threads of consequence. Finally, the creatures retreated. Their curiosity satisfied, they withdrew to the outer edges of the planet, leaving the city intact. Mara and Jalen collapsed to the ground, utterly spent, their bodies trembling from the strain of channeling dual paths. Lyra knelt beside them, gratitude and awe shining in her eyes. "You have saved us," she said softly. "But what will happen next? What will the universe ask of you?" Mara struggled to rise, leaning on Jalen for support. "It will keep asking," she said. "The universe always tests those who hold duality. Every choice we make now matters more than ever." As they prepared to leave Thuris 9, they realized the depth of the consequences of their choice. By intervening, they had saved lives, yes, but they had also altered the natural course of events. Wars that might have ended differently were delayed, alliances shifted, and the balance of power across the planet was forever changed. Jalen looked at Mara, his eyes weary but determined. "We can't see every outcome. We can only act with the best intentions and adapt as things unfold." Mara nodded. "That is what it means to carry both paths. We cannot ignore the consequences, but we cannot be paralyzed by fear either. Humanity, our resilience, that is what will guide us." The silver figure appeared once more as their ship ascended into orbit. "You have done well, but understand this. Consequences are never fully known until they manifest. Some effects are immediate, others will emerge across centuries and galaxies. Your actions will shape the destiny of countless lives. Remember, power is only meaningful when balanced by wisdom and compassion." Mara and Jalen absorbed the words, knowing that the dual paths had changed them irreversibly. They were no longer merely travelers seeking adventure. They were guardians of consequences, intermediaries of fate, and humans capable of rising to meet challenges that would test their very essence. As they set their course for the next point on the holographic map, Mara reflected on everything they had learned. The universe was not simply a place of opportunity and wonder. It was a network of interwoven lives and choices. Every action carried weight. Every decision shaped the future. And humans, clever, courageous, adaptable, had the power to navigate it even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Jalen placed a hand on her shoulder. "Whatever comes next, we face it together. We have learned what it means to bear the consequences. And we will continue to rise no matter how difficult the path becomes." Mara smiled faintly. "Yes, we may not know every outcome, but we know we will act with courage and heart. That is what makes us human. That is what gives us strength." The stars stretched out before them, infinite and dazzling. They were travelers, yes, but also teachers, guardians, and pioneers. The path of duality was long, perilous, and uncertain, but they were ready. Humans were never meant to yield before challenges. They were meant to face them, to grow stronger, and to rise above. And so, Mara and Jalen continued their journey, ready to confront the next test, the next consequence, and the next challenge that awaited across the cosmos. The universe had revealed part of the cost of choosing both paths, but Mara and Jalen understood one thing clearly. As long as humanity's heart remained steadfast, no trial was insurmountable, and no consequence could break their resolve. The stars stretched endlessly before Mara and Jalen as their ship glided through the silent void. Unlike their previous journeys, this segment of the voyage carried a weight heavier than ever. They were not merely traveling, they were navigating the consequences of every choice they had made. The dual paths, still alive within them, hummed constantly, reminding them that power and responsibility were inseparable. The next destination was a planet known in ancient records as Erythra, a world rich in resources but divided by endless conflict. Satellite scans had shown multiple civilizations clashing over scarce water sources, unstable energy grids, and political disputes that threatened to erupt into widespread war. Mara and Jalen knew that this would be their greatest test yet, to intervene without tipping the balance too far, to act without causing harm, and to carry the weight of consequences on every decision. As they entered the planet's atmosphere, the view below shocked them. Cities burned in distant regions, rivers were tainted with chemical runoff, and desperate humans moved frantically, trying to survive. Mara felt a pang of sorrow. It's worse than anything we've seen. The suffering is everywhere. Jalen nodded, his face tight with concentration. Then we have to be precise. If we intervene blindly, we could make everything worse. We must guide carefully like before, but even more so. Their ship landed near a neutral zone, an abandoned city on the border between warring factions. The silence was eerie. Buildings were half destroyed, streets littered with debris, and the faint sound of distant conflict echoed across the horizon. Mara and Jalen stepped out, feeling the dual paths pulse strongly, as though warning them that this trial would challenge more than their strength, it would challenge their hearts. Soon, they encountered a group of civilians hiding in the ruins. Among them was a boy no more than 12 clutching a small animal to his chest. Mara knelt beside him gently. "It's all right," she said. "You're safe now, we're here to help." The boy's eyes widened in disbelief. You're like the stories, can you really help?" Mara smiled softly. "We can try, but you must trust us and help each other. That is the only way." Jalen surveyed the area. "The factions will notice us soon. They will test our influence, our intentions. We have to act quickly and wisely." The dual paths stirred within them, amplifying their mental and physical abilities. They coordinated relief efforts, organized safe zones, and established communication networks between the civilians and leaders willing to negotiate. Using the mental connection provided by the dual paths, Mara and Jalen could anticipate problems before they arose, prevent conflicts from escalating, and stabilize key areas. But every action had a consequence. When they neutralized one conflict, another faction reacted violently elsewhere. When they provided water and medical aid to one city, neighboring regions demanded the same, creating tension they could barely manage. The energy of the dual paths was immense, but it was not infinite. Fatigue set in, their bodies and minds straining under the weight of responsibility. As night fell, the first real test of the trial appeared. A massive energy storm formed above the planet, twisting the atmosphere and causing disruptions in the already fragile ecosystems. The storm seemed alive, responding to the dual energy that Mara and Jalen carried. Lightning arced unpredictably and the wind tore through structures like a predator. This is different, Mara said, feeling the storm's energy resonate through her. It's aware of us. It's testing not just our strength but our judgment. Jalen's eyes narrowed. Then we must be smarter. Strength alone won't work. We have to guide this energy, channel it, use it wisely. They joined hands, focusing the dual paths. Energy flowed through them, luminous and powerful, reaching out to the storm. Unlike previous encounters, this storm did not resist violently. It probed, testing the travelers' intentions, observing the precision of their choices. Mara and Jalen guided the energy gently, redirecting destructive currents toward uninhabited regions and stabilizing the planet's atmosphere. Hours passed in near silence, their minds fused in perfect coordination. Mara felt every fluctuation in the storm as if it were her own heartbeat. Jalen anticipated every gust of wind and every strike of lightning before it happened. Their exhaustion was total, yet they did not waver. They knew the consequences of failure were catastrophic, not just for the planet but for countless civilizations connected through the threads of duality. When the storm finally subsided, Mara and Jalen collapsed to the ground, spent but victorious. The cities were safe, the people unharmed, and the energy of the dual paths settled quietly within them. Yet they knew this was not the end. The storm was only a symbol of the universe's test. The consequences of their choice were ongoing and infinite. The silver figure appeared as it had many times before. Its presence was calm, yet filled with authority. You have acted wisely, but understand this. The duality you chose carries consequences that will unfold beyond your lifetimes. You have saved lives, yes, but the balance you disrupted will continue to challenge humanity, to test courage, compassion, and wisdom. Mara, breathing heavily, nodded. We understand. We cannot undo what we have done. We can only act with integrity and care and hope humanity rises to meet what comes. Jalen added, humans are resilient. We adapt, we learn, and we endure. That is what defines us. That is what the universe must understand. The silver figure observed them silently, then gestured toward the holographic map, which shimmered with new points of light. Your journey continues. The dual paths are a gift, but also a responsibility. Every world you touch, every choice you make, will shape the course of civilizations. Remember this always. Power is meaningful only when balanced by wisdom, courage, and compassion. Mara and Jalen absorbed the words, realizing that their journey had grown far beyond exploration. They were no longer just travelers. They were guardians, stewards of consequences, and humans capable of navigating challenges that exceeded imagination. Their ship ascended into orbit, the twin suns of Earthra rising on the horizon. Mara looked at the sprawling cities below, seeing hope mingled with struggle. The universe tests humans in ways we cannot always see, she said softly. But it also gives us the ability to rise, to act, and to make a difference. Jalen smiled faintly, though weariness was etched in his features. And that is exactly what we will do. We cannot control every outcome, but we can act with courage and integrity. That is what it means to bear both paths. The stars stretched endlessly before them once more, infinite and dazzling. Mara and Jalen understood that the journey of duality was not a destination. It was a path, continuous and evolving. Every challenge, every consequence, every choice was part of a larger tapestry. Humans were not merely observers of the universe. They were participants, capable of shaping destinies with determination, compassion, and wisdom. As they set their course for the next destination, Mara reflected on everything they had learned. Choosing both paths had been daring, perhaps reckless, but it had revealed the true nature of human potential. Strength alone was not enough. Knowledge alone was not enough. It was the combination of courage, empathy, and intellect, the human spirit itself, that allowed them to rise above trials, face consequences, and persevere. Jalen reached out and took Mara's hand. Whatever comes next, we face it together. We carry the consequences, yes, but we also carry hope, humanity, and the ability to make a difference. Mara nodded, a sense of calm determination filling her. We are humans. That is our greatest strength. No matter what the universe throws at us, we will rise. The ship accelerated into the stars, leaving Earthra behind. Mara and Jalen, bonded by the dual paths and the trials they had endured, looked forward to the infinite possibilities ahead. The universe was vast, unpredictable, and filled with challenges, but humans were capable of adapting, overcoming, and thriving. And in that moment, Mara and Jalen understood the ultimate lesson of their journey. Choosing both paths had not merely given them power or knowledge. It had revealed the essence of humanity itself, the courage to face consequences, the wisdom to act with integrity, and the resilience to rise above every challenge. The stars stretched infinitely before them, a canvas of endless opportunities. Mara and Jalen, bound by purpose, heart, and the dual paths, were ready to meet whatever came next. Humanity would endure. Humanity would rise. And together they would face the consequences, however vast and unimaginable, with courage and hope. The journey was far from over. The universe had more trials, more challenges, more consequences. But Mara and Jalen, guided by the essence of what it meant to be human, were ready. And that was enough. They thought choosing both was the end. Part 2 revealed the real consequences.